Warning, this video will contain bright colors and flashing lights. Viewer discretion is advised. So, you guys like that last one, huh? Howdy, hey, hi, Octane Freakazoids. Welcome back to DeadOctane. My name is Octane, and I sure am dead, and we have to talk about vehicles. If you thought me ranking the stuff you stand in was niche, what about the stuff you sit in? The planes, the trains, the automobiles. Disney has a lot of ride vehicles to talk about. Disney parks are the cream of the crop when it comes to theming for every facet of their rides. And since Walt Disney was, concerningly obsessed with trains, transportation became a highlight, even in a time where their design wasn't thought nearly as much about. But I love thinking lots about them, so it's time for me to pit them against each other. Hand-to-hand combat. Wheel-to-wheel. As for criteria, any ride that moves you within the 4 major Walt Disney World Parks is an instant count. Unless you're the Carousel of Progress that is a theater and will not be here, sorry not sorry. Because of the time I'm working on this video, many attractions are currently being refurbished or upended completely. But I can't not include them. To curb this, rides like Buzz Lightyear and Big Thunder will be included with their most recent information at the time of me writing the script. I also wanted to actually specify what I'm looking at in each vehicle, what makes vehicles good or bad for me, since I had criteria for the last video but cut it out of the final draft, and I want to pop the hood. First is design. Does it look pretty or unique, or does it fit the whole ride well? Is it aesthetically pleasing, or do I want to bleach my eyes when I see it roll into the station? Second is comfort. This is specifically how sitting and restraints feel, not necessarily how it is in motion. Are there cushions on the seat, or is it hard, scratchy plastic? Are the restraints comfortable, or is it grinding my bones? Third is movement. This one's a little harder to define because it doesn't necessarily mean the track, but how it moves on the track. So, for example, one ride may have a very complex track, but its movement feels clunky. That wouldn't do well in this category, but a ride with a simple track that has smooth movement, that's gonna do well. Finally is uniqueness. This is my wildcard category, where I talk about things that this vehicle does differently. The on-ride activities or the unique features, no matter how small. That's our criteria, so we can rank. Finally! Well, just one more thing. It's sponsor time! It's me again, hi, hello. No sponsor today, but I want to start this video off with a big, ginormous thank you. To get sappy for a quick moment, YouTube is something I've wanted to dip my toes into ever since I was a tiny little microchip. So to see this niche ranking community come up from one video, so inspiring. Your feedback and video recommendations and words of encouragement have worked. So I take my boulder back to my hill. Except I love my boulder and the hill is so fun. So thank you everyone for this. There will be a quick segment at the end about how to keep supporting the channel, but for now, we've got places to be. And now, the meat and potatoes, ranking every ride vehicle in Walt Disney World. These bottom 4 have a bit of a trend. For what it's worth, it is really hard to design a good water vehicle for many reasons. One is that most boats are somewhat free-moving, usually using water jets to push the boats along. With the wrong water vehicles, this can be really finicky, especially for the slower attractions. So it needs to be aerodynamic. Hydrodynamic? It needs to swim good. Beyond motion being a big factor, water loves to damage things. Erosion and warping over time are facts of life in physics, and the manufacturers are more worried about making the ride stable than good-looking. What's the point of putting time and money into a beautiful design if they know it'll only fade over time? All those excuses aside, it still can't save these from being the dregs of the list. In a park with pure innovation and magic, an uncomfortable, ugly boat is gonna take the lowest billing. But who's earned the bottom spot? The least comfort, design, motion, and uniqueness wrapped up in one horrible bow. Which vehicle is the worst? Which one of you did it? Which of you is the blackened, huh? Oh god, no, run, it's Donald, run! Grand Fiesta Tour, starring the 3 Caballeros. Let's all take a moment of silence for how smoked this poor boy will be. Okay, silence over. What the f is this? Aerodynamics? You've got some explaining to do. These boats were actually made for Fiesta Tour's predecessor, El Rio del Tiempo. But there's no excuse for that, because these are the exact same ride. The only thing Grand Fiesta Tour added was foul play. You people are no fun, just like these boats. I just can't get into the thought process of the Imagineers for this one. Why are they this teal that fits nothing in the attraction, or even the pavilion? Did they just think, Jose's at least a lime electric super sour green, it's close enough? There's also designated boat numbers hastily spray-painted on the front. Isn't that immersive? Don't the rivers of Mexico evoke images of poorly designed graffiti someone scrawled over their high school wall? If being ugly wasn't enough of a sin, I don't even think this counts as movement. These are somehow the slowest of any upcoming canal boats, barely chugging down the track and knocking into their guidance systems the whole way down. And I hate the anti-slip coating that lines these seats. I'm aware it's for practical reasons, and they're on almost all water attractions. Nobody wants to see Grandma do a somersault because of the tiny splishy splashes of water on this mitten of a ride. But it hurts my hands and my legs. I don't wear shorts at Disney for a reason. It's uncomfortable to sit in, and for such a long and slow cruise that should be a time to sit back, relax, and get cozy. So I despise this boat. And I don't even hate Grand Fiesta Tour. I'm the one who never wants to skip it. But I promise you, that is in spite of this demon. I bet these boats are what killed Jose.
Pretty patties, available in 6 designer colors.
Oh god, it's down here again. I'm doomed. But while I have the last few seconds of my life and sanity, the It's a Small World canal boats are our bottom runner-up. Do I have to say anything more? These are the same thing as Grand Fiesta Tour, but they come in a variety of different colors. Cough medicine red, Justice t-shirt purple,
racist green,
and 12-year-old tween girl bedroom blue. For what it's worth, these are a bit bigger than Fiesta Tour's boats and don't lag nearly as bad in the water, unless you get to the 5-boat pile-up at the end. The backs of the seats are taller with these grabby bars to hold on tight for the riveting journey ahead of you. And there's a bit of color diversity in there, since the seats are lighter than the main boat. Beyond that, there isn't much setting it apart from the center above it. It's still got the anti-slip, labored movement, and mostly monochrome seats. I wish such an iconic attraction would get an extra design boost. It's not going anywhere, we've got time. While I was editing, my sister, in some desperate bid for this not to be the worst one, suggested adding those little wind-up keys on toys and dolls on the back of the boat. It would add to the toy theme, and it can't be that expensive. The Barnstormer basically did it already with its propeller. So please, Disney, add it. A little addition for me. Pretty please. It's the only way I can avoid her wrath and say something nice about this, please.
There's a leak in the boat!
I know. I failed you yet again. I promise at least in one category, Living with the Land will redeem itself someday. But that day is not today. Living with the Land sure does have monochrome boats, doesn't it? We are 3 for 3, but it does have a few nice features that put it above the others. First of all, the armrests on the side frame the whole boat better. It's got this unique raised-up silhouette that the other boats don't have. It also has a canopy overhead. I wish the fabric had a pattern, maybe some stripes or leaves, and it's a bit short, too. Does it look a little like a rush job? Maybe, but the thought was there. This is also the first entry on our list to feature on-ride audio, which are speakers in the vehicle itself to give a more personal experience. Most of the time, this is used for either ambient music or direct narration, and the latter's used here. Living with the Land used to have a cast member doing the narration live, which, probably would have put this higher than it is now, but it's still a positive addition, and I'm glad we have something. Where it loses me is the monochromatic color scheme. I'm sorry, I've tried my best to be nice to this, and while the green does in fact fit Living with the Land, unlike another bird-brained attraction, it's still, ugly. I hate this specific green. It fills me with rage. I'm like a bull, but instead of red, it's ugly ride green teal. The seats are okay, the motion's okay, the extra unique factors are okay. It's all just okay. but I'd rather be off than forget about what I'm talking about.
Here for an apple? Do you take us for idiots? We never trust food from someone like you.
Hey, look, apples!
The last of our opening boat quadrilogy, and man, the difference between its placement in my two rankings is crazy, by the way, is Pirates of the Caribbean's Little Bateau Boats.
Hey, Octane.
Oh, yes, dear follower?
Are you stupid? This is the same kind of boat as Fiesta and Small World.
And?
You put it above Living with the Land.
And?
Living with the Land is unique. It's got innovation. You can't go against your own criteria, so you can put Pirates higher than it deserves.
So anyway, Pirates, I know how hypocritical putting it at the top of this mini list is, but I think it fits the vibes more. Being on a little rowboat out at sea is the look of the season, duh. Even if it's the same as all the other boats, but it's thematic, I swear. What it lacks in unique or even appealing design, it makes up for by being part of the narrative in a way that makes sense, unlike its peers. It also moves better in my experience than the other boats. Part of that may be the larger boat size than the above, giving it slower movement with a wider waterway and more margin of error, or even the drop itself might help the propulsion. But I hate to break it to you, this boat was not meant to go down a drop. It's bumpy as hell because of the shape of the boat, and it sort of jumbles you, but it's luckily the only really rough part of the ride. All my glazing to say, this is still bad. Really bad for a ride vehicle. I would say the end of our F tier at the very least. And I know I'm not comparing other versions of rides, but in comparison to every other Pirates boat, in every other park, especially since this wasn't even the first Pirates, this is just a pathetic showing. And who's the culprit? Arrow? Again? Arrow!
It is nice driving my 2020 Chevy Silverado.
Hi, Speedway.
Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am Tomorrowland Speedway's biggest hater. Yeah, we weren't getting any further in this video without me rolling up my sleeves to absolutely beat this clown. I hate this ride, and everything it stands for. I don't care about how it's been touched up recently. A cute paint job fixes nothing. It's cheap, and while the boats below it also look cheap, they have a reason for doing so. Not this, never the Tomorrowland Speedway, because that would require comfort, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, all things that this monster lacks. You would think the only self-propelled go-kart-esque attraction in the Disney World bubble would win points for that, wouldn't you? Well, it doesn't. Anyone who isn't 3 apples tall has to show their contortionist license to pack themselves into this thing. I don't care that this is aimed at kids. It doesn't have a height limit, does it? No, which means there's no reason a grown adult shouldn't be able to get in the car without suffering. The control scheme is interesting, at least. Actually driving the car is fun until, you actually do it. It's a failure of a go-kart, since Disney had the bright idea to try and market it to little kids. And that meant safety precautions were in place. First off is the speed. And yes, I'm blaming the vehicles for this one, since the cars themselves are self-propelled. Instead of a track, the cars have their own engines. Engines that smell horrible, by the way. But also, they don't even have a horsepower. A pony power, maybe. And I don't mean my little ones either. These aren't go-karts. They're slow karts. And on top of that, as if trudging along wasn't enough, there's still guardrails, a guidance system under each car that keeps them in their lane. And while that makes sense in a vacuum, the rails have barely any wiggle room. So if you don't have picture-perfect, all-clear Project Diva precision, you're gonna get rattled around worse than Donald's maracas. Sorry, Donald, you didn't deserve that. It's made of cheap, ugly plastic, you can barely fit in the seat, and driving it somehow feels less safe than being behind the wheel of a large automobile. I hate Tomorrowland Speedway.
Boogly, 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 pop. Space Rainbow.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to ride in a tampon? Don't answer that. But hey, now you can, with Space Mountain. For an icon of the parks, there is so much making this version of the ride one of the weakest to be put out, and most of that can be attributed to these extremely strange cars. It's giving bobsled, and last I checked, this wasn't the Matterhorn. You mixing up your mountains now? But this vehicle style wouldn't be bad in a vacuum, especially because we don't have any other coaster like it in the Disney World bubble, but it's the design that makes it seem so strange. I understand the intention was to make a rocket ship, but there's so much more genuinely making it look like a bobsled. From the icy blues and grays on the sides to the numbers on the front that literally look like racing numbers, it feels like they made these vehicles for a different ride and just tossed them in here because they were blue. The one thing I can give these seats is that they're fairly comfortable, smooth and squishy, but you guys remember Clay World? Was it worth it? Even though the seat comfort isn't bad, its comfort points drop way back down at the restraint system. My pelvic bone gets shattered into a million Lego bricks every time this lap bar is pulled down, which is crazy because this is one of the soft lap bars, and I'm a pretty small guy. I'm a little dude. This shouldn't happen. And yet, somehow, despite the comfort and cushion they added, it doesn't fix anything in motion. Everyone complains about their back problems on Big Thunder. What about Space Mountain? Where's the chiropractors lining up to make millions off the poor saps who go on this ride? These cars whip me around constantly, like I'm always one bad lunge away from getting torn off the track. And don't even get me started on the volume. Something about these cars, whether it's their type or their age, makes this agitating, grating noise. It's a loud ka-clunk down every single part of the track. At the very least, it's a coaster. Coasters go really fast, so the noises here aren't as distracting as... This thing only goes 27 miles per hour? Thumbs down on the tampon mobile.
Hey, everybody! It's Leif Erikson Day! Hinga-dinga-durgan!
And we're back to basics. Boat basics? Boat 6. Frozen Ever After stuns with the same old Viking boats. But, oh my, do my eyes deceive me? Is that the slightest amount of decoration? Beautiful, magical, never been done before. Until you realize, what the fuck is this? That's not Frozen. That's not Olaf or Sven. Bro, it isn't even Hans. Well, that's because, like Grand Fiesta before it, these are the old Maelstrom boats, Frozen's predecessor. But these at least manage to fit the world of Frozen fairly well. The Viking ships have a more unique hydrodynamic shape where they're bowed at the front and back to a point, probably because of the backwards drop. The shape has proved to help the motion in the main water sections too, only really struggling on its incline. The boat drags and chugs on the conveyor belt, but luckily none of its drops feel that way, unlike Pirates. Besides that, no real noise complaints other than the switch tracks and the Elsa and Snowball sequences, but that's a track issue. These boats are safe for now. As most boats do, we have the slip-resistant coating here, but this is the first ride for where it really feels warranted. Frozen has a bigger splash zone than Tiana's. You know, the one that was once called Splash Mountain. Because the boat hits the water on its side, even on such a small drop track, the splash will soak anybody sitting on the left. Because of this, the seats are always wet and cold if you happen to sit on that side, so really hold on to your stuff. I completely soaked one of my bags when I just sat down here for a few seconds. Overall, it's only a marginal step up from the same painful boats of old, but its smoother movement keeps it up just a step from being totally frozen over.
You know, I knew Mr. Frog.
Tiana's Bayou Adventure has a complicated answer for where I rank it, because it sure is a log flume. If you somehow live under a rock, or a piece of bark, log flumes were a type of water ride made first in the 1960s, since the log shape was not only an interesting new theme, but also much more hydrodynamic than the boxy boat drops of the past. And I've never liked them. I always thought sitting in a log was stupid and an honestly boring theme for an entire attraction, let alone an entire genre. But to understand why my general log flume hatred extends to Tiana, we have to go back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkeys off the menu. Wait, hold on, wrong date. 1989. Back in the 80s, Disneyland in Anaheim gave birth to the park icon Splash Mountain. It became a legend and was ported over to the Magic Kingdom in 1992 to be one of the park's big three mountains. The theme, a very well-liked and very popular Disney film that Disney definitely didn't try to hide for decades, followed folktales of anthropomorphic characters living in the American South. Woodland critters living in the trees and brambles, removed from their unfortunate context, is one of the few rides to make sense with a log flume theme. Okay, we gotta cut back to the future now. Tiana's Bayou adventure kicked Splash Mountain to the curb, opening in June of 2024. It kept the track and most animatronics of Splash Mountain, but changed the overall theme. No longer exists the general southern laughing place, but instead the lush bayou of Louisiana. So yeah, duh, a log vehicle makes sense. But does it? Existing within the sphere of being deep in the woods and floating on a log, it does, but compared to Frozen's usage of the same vehicle, I wanted to see something more from the new attraction overhaul. Even if it's only some glowing paint to mimic the fireflies, changing the logs entirely, anything would be welcome at this point. My biggest problem is that it doesn't fit the queue, which I praised in my ranking of those for being a unique look into Tiana's foods. But why would a tour of this famous chef's home end in a log? There's a disconnect here that I've never been able to wrap my head around. It fits the ride, but not the queue, and it's like they thought, good enough. I feel like a whole attraction needs to work in tandem, with its vehicle and queue and music and design and everything working together. If it were my decision, I would have absolutely gone for a more boat-like design. Still something that fits for the water, but the design can mimic a similar wood paneling to the restaurant exterior in tons of different colors to match. The attraction doesn't have an aggressive track. A boat could handle this the same as a log. It's not bad, and I honestly hate to fault Tiana's any more than so many people have already. I just didn't care for log flumes even before this. I have a similar issue with Astro Orbiter's rockets that I do with Tiana's logs, and that's that there's a clash with the vehicles and the rest of the attraction, which is crazy because this was just refurbed. Seeing this ride being gutted and recobbled together really made me think back to another time this happened, 2014, which marked the dawn of our current rockets in rotation. Get it? Rotation. Even after all these years, I still don't know how to feel about them. On one hand, compared to the old rockets from the 90s onward, these are so much more distinct. I'm a huge fan of this 1950s view of the future, and the new rockets sell it with their geometric patterns and bright green headlights. The chrome is shinier, and the end thrusters are well built. They even managed to match the new planet designs even better. On their own, I adore these cars. But that's the thing, on their own. The new rockets are so jarring to me. The tealish blue comes in an ugly contrast with the solid blue of Tomorrowland. It doesn't match the queue's orange paint or any color in the People Mover beneath it. The white and gold found in the old vehicles wasn't as unique, but it at least didn't look stuck onto the arms haphazardly. It matched that bronzish, futuristic look it had. The one thing I like about these, even in their current state, is their control scheme. They use these handlebars to move up and down, which gives Top Gun to me. It's more creative than the typical joystick of old. Looking at it in full, Astro Orbiter somehow has the opposite problem of Tiana's, where they changed everything and now nothing fits because of it. Wow, you really can't make me happy, can you?
Water.
Please, no more boats, please! Okay, this one isn't so bad. Welcome back to the bottom, Navi River Journey. The lower spot can be attributed to being another slow-moving boat. Yay! But it's definitely the best looking and most comfortable one in that category, so we're finally free! The reed rafts have a soft, rounded shape, squishy and textured and extra decorated. Think Raft Riot and Mario Party DS, but instead of having the knockback force of a mantis shrimp, this has more than 20 pixels to its name. There's a lot to love about the visuals of the River Journey boats. The woven exterior is an especial highlight and matches the queue. Oh my god, it is possible! Even the seats are detailed, with an almost worn leather paint job on them. Reeds line the edges of the seats, and even the handlebars. On top of that, they also have an interesting shape, kind of like a little cornucopia. But it loses me when I remember this is Navi River Journey we're talking about. Its motion is fine, and it looks great, but it doesn't stick with me. Nothing about this sticks with me. I try to be objective, but it isn't doing anything exciting. I don't care for slow-moving boats, I don't care for Avatar, and I don't care for the Navi River journey. Sorry, not sorry.
When this baby hits 8 miles per hour.
Spaceship Earth's cars are some of the most dated in the current Disney Parks catalog, ripped directly from a landfill made exclusively of Star Trek the Original Series set pieces. These Omni-movers are painfully rough. Let's break it down, which shouldn't be hard with this cheap plastic. Look-wise, it's strange and geometric, with a sliding door and 2 cramped rows of seats in this ugly teal. Since the entire fleet of vehicles is one big link, there are these strange little connector platforms between some of the cars, and, they sure do add some set dressing. In fairness, this ride doesn't exactly have a good, literal, non-conceptual theme for its cars to go off of. But with it being made as an Omni-mover, you don't want the vehicles to be too complex to avoid clunky movement, because we can all agree it moves smooth as butter, right? Of all the Omni-movers, of most of the rides we've been on so far, this is the most clunk of junk piece of I have ridden. Every single movement sounds like it's begging me for an oil can, like it's been rusted over 1,000,000 times and just broken out of it as it chugs around. Omni-movers are always at their best when they're smooth sailing, but in one that has so many quiet and introspective moments, it kills the mood even more when you sound like you hit someone with your car. So it's loud, uncomfortable, slow-moving, and in an ugly color scheme, which is why it's at the bottom. Huh? What do you mean this isn't the bottom spot? It's number 40! More notes? Hey, it would have been nice to have this when I started talking. So yeah, gather back around, there's a reason this isn't at the bottom. The screens! Yay, screens! Everyone rejoice! In 2007, as part of a new partnership with... I can't say it. I can't say the name, I'm not mature enough for this. There was a new post-show added as part of this partnership. And who's that lovable scamp up there? The post-show was meant to show technological advancements in the current day and future surrounding communication, and that meant putting you in the driver's seat. So at the beginning, your screen turns on, and you have to choose your continent and the vague area you come from. Your picture's then taken, and with the best of the camera's ability, it captures your face. And then you forget about it for 20 minutes. Go about your soothing journey, ignore the screen, until the ending. This empty descent has a little iPad baby game to tide you over. BuzzFeed, the ride. Questions include your interests, the kind of person you are, and where you want to live, and it all compounds to create a final video about your definite future life. As cheesy as this feature is, it fits the theme of Future World pretty well, since it's all about what's next. Even if it's a pretty stark tonal shift from the educational experience before it, I think this is the kind of saccharine I expect from a Disney-fied future.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
From one Epcot Future World Omni-mover to another, we've got Journey into Imagination with Figment. Largely, not much different from the time machines of Spaceship Earth, and this one doesn't even have pre-installed Cocomelon for you to enjoy, but I think these are more aesthetically pleasing. Movement-wise, the tour vehicles don't shamble along the track. Sure, it's slow-moving, but it's a dark ride, that's par for the course, but it's a lot smoother here than Spaceship Earth. The way the vehicle turns doesn't feel like its bones will crumble and creak with the slightest rotation. Looks-wise, yeah, that's where the cars lose me. It's mostly the same shiny red plastic all throughout, but it's got a cool shape. They look like little cursors, or, I don't know, a cherry gusher. And it's got the Imagination Institute emblem on the front, but besides that, their extremely bland design keeps them from going any higher. From a story standpoint, I get it. These are supposed to be professional tour vehicles. They don't need anything super fancy. But what if they were able to change, transform, do something in that final sequence? Vehicles are probably, technically speaking, my weakest point of understanding their mechanics. Funny enough that I'm making this video then. But I wonder how you can make a ride effect where the cars change and react to what's happening in the show, whether they can react to the sights and smells and everything else. It would give a more finished and complete experience, and Disney's totally gonna put effort into maximizing Figment's potential.
Shoot! That was my last quarter.
Okay, let's get this out of the way. The Prince Charming Regal Carousel. And there's really nothing to say. A carousel's a carousel's a carousel. Unless we're in Epic Universe, but we're not there right now. Since this is a flat ride and it moves and feels the same as every other carousel, its biggest selling point is the design, and yep, they're horses. Granted, they're beautiful handcrafted horses with stellar paint jobs, but there isn't anything else to say about it. It's not reinventing the spinning horse wheel. It gets an itty-bitty sliver of uniqueness for one of these supposedly being Cinderella's horse, a little Disney rumor for you. But come on, I'm running out of things to say. I guess I respect what it's doing, but there's really nothing else going for it. So these next two entries have extremely similar vehicles. Seashells. But who sold their seashells by the seashore better, you may be asking? I had my opinion, but I thought I could have a civil conversation with my sisters about it. It was not civil. In the war between these two attractions, it became a screaming match of nonsensical arguments on their end. And even though it was 2 against 1, I put my own opinion as the better because it's my channel. But also, my dad accidentally gave me my perfect argument. I asked his opinion, and he originally agreed with my sisters, saying he remembered a time where he went on the seas, and he reached over to scare me because the shells were so close together. And that's when I realized he misremembered which ride that happened on. He had thought it happened during the shark scene on the seas with Nemo and friends, but it in fact happened during the Ursula scene of Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid, which meant my opinion was the winner because I had a genuine argument against it, and that's that this is a failure of an Omni-mover. Okay, that's a little harsh, but you'll see what I mean. Journey of the Little Mermaid seashells are the weaker of the shells, and for the first reason stated before, they don't work as intended. The most famous Omni-mover attraction, which will come up later, famously had this clamshell shape to restrict vision, but these are way too shallow to succeed there. You don't feel enclosed, which is why I was able to remember my dad reaching over when the shells were side by side. Visually, they also aren't much better. There's only one type of shell here in this blushy pink, and I don't hate the colors. They look extra shiny, like they're still wet from the ocean, but they're all the exact same. And before you tell me that that's how most Omni-movers are, we will get to that, don't worry. But here, there's nothing the seashells do. They have a few cool Omni-mover tricks going backwards. That's all I got. I will say, because this is a newer attraction, I do think this ride has smoother movement and transitions than our other shell friend, and it's the best feeling of the traditional shell Omni-movers. Beyond that, though, this is a cheap imitation crab of a ton of other vehicles that do it way better. From one shell to another, it's time for the clam-mobiles from the seas with Nemo and friends. To get everyone caught up to speed, I love aquariums, and I love fish. The seas is perfection, and if they ever hurt it, I will hurt them. The seas with Nemo and friends is no longer my main reason for coming to the pavilion, that would be the manatees, but I still love this ride, though its vehicle is a little rough around the edges. The worst offender with this has to be the motion. It's on the most basic track of all time. I'm talking baby park levels of basic. Yet somehow, it's got extra creaky movement. How? All you have to do is circle a track. How do you manage to shudder along this bad? Especially since the entire ride was added in 2006? How? It technically replaced the sea cabs, which closed in 2001, and the clams got thrown on the old track. Given that apparently the old sea cabs tunnels were prone to leaking, and there was a 5-year gap in use, my guess is these tracks weren't maintained or prepared for new vehicles. The best part about these cars is the way they look. I told you we'd get back to it. Unlike every shell looking straight out of a cartoon, here we've got some more realistic bivalves. On top of coming in a few different colors, they're also much more detailed. Gone are the soft corners, replaced by more intricate sculpting and multiple layers of color. To me, I'd just rather sit in these than the other shells. Beyond the realistic design that seems perfect for Epcot, these scallops have on-ride audio! It works especially well here because of how linear the track is. I think any actual audio bleed from the sets would have completely killed the mood. I also love the way these clams feel. Yeah, sure, they have just as much room to sit in as any other Omni-mover, but these are just cooler. mostly because of their doors. Yep, we're getting to the real specifics now. How you board them is completely unique in the Omni-mover sphere. Instead of the standard clamshell designs, where you board from the side and the lap bar folds in front of you, here you enter from a gap in the front and center, and both sides of the shell actually fold around you like a big hug. I love this so much, and I prefer it to standard Omni-mover boarding. It's peak and perfect, and I will defend it to the end. But now we know in the epic rap battle of history that is Ariel versus Nemo, the clownfish whoops her more than any of us expected. At least in the ride argument. If this was an actual fight, I think Ariel would crush him like a bug.
Competing for the title of the world's wackiest racer.
Okay, time to get this shit out of the way. You all know my opinions on the Main Street vehicles. I hate them. They're good as set dressing, but completely fail on the front of actually being effective rides. But in the competition of vehicles, it's literally in their name. While this has cycled the cars it's used, I'm gonna briefly talk about the ones that are on offer in the parks today. Since there isn't much to discuss about them individually, let's do a quick mini ranking, so I can get that out of my sight. Number 4, the fire engine. This one's just an uglier version of one later on the list. If it didn't have the text or the ladder on the side, I would have no idea this was supposed to be a fire engine. And on top of that, this just looks like how a 5-year-old draws cars. Number 3, the omnibus. It's like the fire engine if you threw another layer on top of it. There's something off-putting about it, and that's coming from someone who generally loves double-decker buses. Doesn't it look unsafe? Like it was built on the legs of baby horses. And this isn't even the one with the horse. Number 2, the jitney. I think this one's pretty cute, just a funky little buggy. That's all it needs to be. It's got that old-school feel I think matches Main Street the best. Number 1, the horse-drawn streetcar. It's got a horse! But no, my actual reason, besides this having a cool seat layout, color scheme, and actually being connected to the track, it's the way this car moves. For most of these entries, I don't take speed into account. That's usually a track issue unless the car itself is self-propelled. That being said, the placement of this attraction, being in the middle of a major walkway, makes it so all 4 of the vehicles have to move at the slowest speed ever, which is why the only non-car gets a leg up above the others. I don't care if the horse is slow, that's to be expected, but if Pop-Pop is behind the fire engine wheel at negative 0.1 miles an hour, it doesn't feel as immersive as an old-timey automobile.
Someone ought to put you in a mental hospital.
Someone should put you in a box!
We've officially reached the pretty good category, the B tier, and we're going up to the Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover. But despite TTAP's constant stay in the bottom tiers, and tendency to break down entirely, I still adore it. It's notorious for its stops and starts and loud dragging on the tracks, but unlike some of the others where the noise kills the immersion, here I kind of enjoy it. The chugging along doesn't ruin any of the scenes to me, maybe because being outdoors drowns out the most annoying sounds. And not that it's the vehicle's fault, but I do kind of like the breakdowns on this one. Last time I was here, I was stuck on board for 10 minutes, and I enjoyed every second of it. I'd say the weakest aspect is the design of the People Mover. The shapes are boring and boxy, like those plush jewelry boxes with soft velvet inside. Except instead of soft velvet, you've got worn pleather. No more hard plastic! Yay! The material isn't that high quality, and sometimes you can see where it chips, but it's small potatoes for an overall comfortable seat. Also, this has a great color scheme. To me, Tomorrowland's colors are the silver and blue. I love silver and blue so much. They're the spacey colors to me, especially since they can't be seen anywhere else in this park. And there's even backwards seats. I love the backwards seats. These are the best ones. If you ever see me in a front-facing seat, that's not me. I've been body snatched. Kenjaku's got me, man. Lastly, I'm gonna end this on a hypothetical note, and that's that even though the motion and breakdowns are its biggest issues, I love the motion. Again, this could be more a track thing than a vehicle thing, but I need to point out that the People Mover cars feel like you're riding a Minecraft minecart. Like, don't those fast sections feel like powered rails? I'm not crazy, I swear this is true.
Dinosaur train!
Time for another similar duo, the trains. Like the Main Street vehicles, these are exactly as advertised, meant to get you from point A to point B. The Wildlife Express train is the first of the 2 on the list, but it was definitely a toss-up. Both these trains have the same exact motion, so that didn't come into play, but there was a little more going for the polish of the Walt Disney World Railroad. But that doesn't mean I dislike the Wildlife Express train. I actually think design-wise, this one's the much more creative of the 2. It has a bigger, more imposing engine with an awesome skull on the front. My only design flaw is that I wanted more props on the front engine itself, since the rest of the train is covered in nets, luggage, and supplies. A little something strapped to the side could have gone a long way. And I also think these flags on the front look really cheesy. I know these are taking you to the kiddie area, but I don't care for the typography at all. Desaturate the colors at least. This looks like it was made in tux paint. Everything else, though, I completely adore, especially the passenger cars. Similarly to the Seas, the Wildlife Express train has cars you enter from the front, and a forced perspective in 2 rows to look out at all the nature of the preserve. And this is its best feature by far. There's shutters rolled up above the windows, well-painted doorways and tin roofs. These just look spectacular. Everything screams Animal Kingdom. And the last positive I have is its on-ride narrator. He just sounds so happy to be here, like the narrator on the resort buses. So while there's nothing I hate about the Wildlife Express train, I think Walt's personal dedication has to get a step up. But what is it that makes the Walt Disney World Railroad better? It's got a more basic seating type, no decor at the top, not even a chance to see wildlife, so what gives? This is an innovation, it's not even an invention. I like the narrator better. Yes, that's most of my reason. I think the onboard audio for the railroad has a perfectly Magic Kingdom tone to it, the same feeling PhilharMagic gives. It exudes that sort of Disney-fied whimsy that we've seen time and time again. Maybe it's because this feels like the most direct nod to Walt himself within his whole world, besides the statue of him. But if you know anything about Walt, you know he loved trains. Trains were one of the things that inspired him to make a theme park in the first place. So a lot of the points this gets are more on the side of history and sentimental. Also, because as much as I love animals, I am obsessed with Disney Parks history. Design-wise, I also think this has an impressive vibe throughout. Where it lacks an extra decoration, it makes up for in elaborate lettering, old-school seats, and more classic front engine. When I think Main Street, I think of this. So yeah, Disney magic makes the railroad win. Also, I love red, black, and yellow together. It's the dynamic duo of Lupin III and Mickey Mouse, the ideal color scheme.
Oh, I'm so cold that I'm shivering.
I'm so cold that I can use my nose drippings as a pair of chopsticks.
I'm so cold that I'm shivering.
The Expedition Everest steam train. Man, does this frustrate me. This should have been a well-designed masterpiece, but instead, all I got was a very unfinished-looking coaster. My biggest issue is the visual design. Unfortunately, this ride doesn't come with an engine in the front of the train. Technically, the engine does exist. It's just on the back of the train, not the front. But it looks weird to me. I know, I hate fun and innovation. Hang me from the neck until dead. But I think it looks ridiculous. It's designed that way on purpose, probably so there's nothing blocking guest view of the iconic broken train tracks, because it's not like there's this big boxy seats blocking the view of every other guest that isn't in the front row. Without a front train, it looks unfinished, like someone sawed it off or Okuyasu handed it. Without a front car, there doesn't feel like a sense of progression, or at least a differently themed front car like a certain rocking and rolling coaster later down the line. Beyond that, it's also extremely uncomfortable, and at times the most uncomfortable of the coasters, and okay, this is the ride where I have to announce I've never actually been on it. I know, I'm a sinner and a liar. I made a whole video on details of every ride at Disney World despite not having been on some of the biggest deals there. I know, I'm evil. But I'm what we in the industry like to call a coward, and therefore I had to outsource some of my vehicle knowledge on these to an external source. My sister here provided a few talking points, and here's what she had to say.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm pissed off. Mount Everest? More like Mount Cooperest. I don't even know how to explain it in a way that makes sense. It's genuinely the worst thing I've ever been on in my entire life. Like, you know, one of those medieval torture tables where they pull your limbs off? It feels like that, but that's not even the worst part. Because when you're on it, it's fun and fast, until the backwards drop. When not only is your head being yanked up, but also it's bouncing side to side between the restraints. It's like a concussion contraption. It's awful and it goes on for like a full 2 minutes. I hate that ride so much, but I don't know how to articulate it in a way that makes sense. One of these.
What are some of your likes?
Ghouls.
Son of a... What are you talking about now?
Funny little green ghouls.
What? Like in movies and cartoons? What?
Little green ghouls, buddy.
Don't write ghouls.
I'm not.
Alien Swirling Saucers is somehow both unique and uninspired at the same time. Even though no whip rides have existed in Disney World before, if you know anything about me, it's that I have my certification in flat ride hatering. And while whips are a breath of fresh air, it's still something you can pop off the shelf. It whips you around sharp corners, but hey, it could be an aerial carousel. Oh, we still have 2 of those I have left to rank. I wish the movement was more exaggerated, that these cars had a wider range of swing to go off on. That would have made the movement more exciting. Where it does have decent marks is its design. All the Toy Story attractions have strong visual hallmarks because of how varied the toys are. In just one franchise, you're able to see many different genres represented. But Buzz Lightyear's the best because it's got funky little aliens, and who can beat funky little aliens? The ships themselves are pretty simple, only coming in 3 different color variations, but they're shaped well, cozy and tiny and squishy looking. If Figment was a gusher, this is a super sour gusher, in color and all. There's a little Pizza Planet logo, and itty-bitty wings, and even a control panel at the front of each car. But you're not here for the vehicle. You're here for the thing on the front of the vehicle. That's right. You thought having a control panel meant you were in the driver's seat? Nah. Have you seen anything about Tomorrowland Speedway? You know Disney doesn't trust you. Nah, we hired this guy to drive you around. Yeah, the thing that makes these rockets unique is the alien attached to the front. While it isn't technically the thing you sit in, these little guys serve a very important purpose. They're the connector piece for the cables that actually give the ride the whipping sensation. So while it may seem pretty tacked on at a first glance, take a closer look at them the next time you ride, and give them a good Yelp review. They're trying to get their towing business off the ground.
What happened to you?
One minute you're defending the whole galaxy, and suddenly you find yourself sucking down Darjeeling with Marie Antoinette and her little sister.
Speaking of forgettable flat ride types, let's talk about the Mad Tea Party. I mentioned this in my Q video, but the Tea Party has become an icon for being the best type of spinning ride. As long as you lock in and put in that elbow grease, you can catapult yourselves to break the sound barrier. The motion present is smooth, despite its age, spinning both on its own and directly into the next platform. They are a little bit uncomfortable, feeling pretty cramped where if you don't adjust them a certain way, your knees kind of grind against the metal spinny thing in the center. The fact that you have to figure out how to readjust can be pretty frustrating, but if you can find a good position, you'll survive. But since the motion is the biggest hallmark of these vehicles in the first place, what about its design makes it so average? Unfortunately, this is one of the few where I did a little extra research. Technically, I'm not marking anything against the Disney World version, but I wanted to point out how much better the cups look in the Disneyland version. There, each cup is decorated in these adorable symbols and looks much closer to an actual kid's tea set. This one is more merchandisable. The Disney World one just has these abstract Wonderland-ish scribbles on it, and they look okay. I think it's the colors that bother me, on both versions, but especially the Disney World version. Wonderland is an extremely vibrant place, but the colors here look muted and muddled. Make it brighter, shinier. I want it to look like part 2 of Weird Mageddon in these cups, come on! Bam, bam, bam! Taking out another flat ride, I'm on fire! It's Dumbo the Flying Elephant, and, it sure is an aerial carousel. Its movement is round and up and down. I think we got the gist by now. It's also fairly comfortable, at least because it's wider and there's much more room. I've never been a huge fan of this ride as a ride once I got older, but I have to admit that the vehicles are iconic. Similar to the teacups, they're synonymous with Disney as a whole, but they don't have much of a difference from one another. And also, not that continuity matters, these are non-canon, but there are multiple vehicles here that are all different flying elephants. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize the ride was called Dumbo's, the Flying Elephants. Technically, that could also apply to another aerial carousel I have yet to talk about. But wasn't the entire movie about how no elephant had ever been born like Dumbo, and so everyone thought he was a freak and a loser? But now they've multiplied, which means one of 2 things. One, either the genetic pool greatly diversified and this was considered more normal, or 2. The other example. Dumbo the Flying Elephant is capable of asexual reproduction. He performed mitosis.
Oh no, you guys. Do you think that Jafar could be right about Aladdin? Me
Okay, I promise this is the last flat ride for a little while. We'll be safe soon. It spins! Wow, can you guess that one, genius? And at least it has even more legroom than the others because of its open concept seats. Visually, these are my favorite aerial carousel. All the carpets are the same one from the movie, and before you say anything, it is much more believable that Genie cloned the magic carpet than an elephant making multiple copies of itself. I don't care that it's Disney we're talking about. I can't suspend my disbelief that much. If you're looking at this spinning around, you might be confused by me saying these are the same carpet since they all have different colored cushions on them. And yeah, you actually have to look at the carpet itself to see the design from the movie. It took me way too long to realize this. I might be stupid. The thing that makes this unique is the way it's controlled. If you sit up front, you get a joystick so you can move it up and down. Standard practice, right? Oh. You forgot the scarab. If you get the privilege of sitting in the back row, you get a little gold scarab, which gives you the better of the two controls, and that's that it tilts the carpet back and forth. Is it that big of a feature? No, but compared to all the boring flat rides we've been getting non-stop back and forth, this is at least something new. There isn't much making the Big Thunder train itself that iconic. The trains in Big Thunder are fine. Another one in the Walt Disney harem, and I'm starting to get fatigue from them. I think the best thing about them is their shape. It has a good silhouette, especially the passenger cars. The front engine's colors are bold, big fan of the gray and red, and the lettering is that cowboy font that I adore. And it has a nice weathered paint job. I do wish this could extend to the passenger cars. They're an extremely bright, saturated orange, and not nearly as dirty as the front engine. It feels like there's a disconnect, and beyond that, even though orange is my favorite color, it doesn't look great against the backdrop of Thunder Mountain. They're too similar, but not similar enough. Okay, this is one of those times where my opinion's going out the window because I need to address the elephant in the room. Everyone and their mother from the beginning of time has complained about how painful this is to ride, mostly because of the clunky track and harsh movement. But I've never had an issue with pain, not nearly as much as Space Mountain. But I had to mention it, or else I'd see people running around with pitchforks, and that would be a nightmare. Also, there are squishy seats here, so they can't be that bad. The actual sitting comfort is fine, even though the ride itself can be rough. Overall, this is the most standard of the coasters, and the trains in general. But that means we've still got a ways to go. And by a ways to go, I mean the second half of the video. Come on, follow me, it's over here.
Ready for takeoff!
You cut a hole in Farmer Jenkins' grain silo.
Don't remind me.
I knew no good would come from city folk and their flying machines. That's it.
And round 2 of the Barnstormer being dead middle. Let's go. And it's almost all visual reasons as to why. It's a kiddie coaster, so it's not as if the motion's doing anything special. I'd call it a weaker version of Big Thunder, and instead of flying, it feels more like you're dragging. But again, it's a kiddie ride, we're kind of weighing on a curve here. But where Goofy fails in his structural engineering, he at least knows how to make a good-looking airplane. That's in character for him. The design of the train is an airplane! Finally, no more trains! These are adorable, especially because it's fairly rare to have a highly designed coaster train. Like I said with the boats, the way the coaster moves matters more than how it looks, so the most well-designed coasters, they're usually on the more mild side, and thankfully that trade-off works beautifully here. It's why we're able to have some cars with these canopies overhead, why we can have tiny itty-bitty wings on the sides and back. Hell, it's why we can have a working propeller on the front. The circus repaint of this ride was so effective. Back in the Toontown days, when this was first made, it had a very solid blue. Not even necessarily a strong farm color. But this red and gold and a patchwork circus attraction is exactly the sort of theme we needed. It doesn't need to be anything more than a kid's coaster, sure, but they cared to put effort into the theming because, to be honest, that's what most little kids care more about. It's not like they're thrill-seeking. They don't know what a G-force is unless it's that movie from the 2010s.
And you're like, this is so nice. And the baby's like, this is so nice. And then you turn the corner and you're in like Tigger's Abyss. Where it's pitch black and he crawls out of the void and is like, time to bounce, mother.
The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, on paper, should have been higher for me in the visual department. Where else can you sit in a honey pot? But I think I've mellowed out on the actual design aspect over time. They're simply painted pots looking like something you just painted at a Color Me Mine party. Do you guys remember those? I found a Homestuck teacup from there that I painted in middle school recently. Tangent aside, the most unique thing visually is the honey dripping off the sides. I think what frustrates me is their shape, because this isn't a honey pot anymore, this is more of a honey receptacle. It's way too long. That would be a stupid honey pot to have on your shelf. This also marks the return of the Pelvis Killer 9000. And these bars are somehow worse than Space Mountain, maybe because they affect everyone in the row. In my experience, usually the smallest person in the row gets excited and pulls the lap bar all the way down. And then everyone else in the car suffers on impact because it instantly locks. And you're not going to be an inconvenience or ask for help, it's a short ride, but man does it hurt in that very specific instance. But if there's something to Winnie the Pooh that gives it extra points, it has surprisingly dynamic movement for a classic dark ride. There are some points where the motion is different. Instead of going straight ahead on standard inclines and declines, you have full-on bouncing and bobbing movements in the Tigger and Rain scenes. That technically makes this an enhanced motion vehicle. We'll talk more about those later on the list since this ride is aided by its track, but it's really funny considering EMVs are usually used for thrills and not, Pooh Bear. That being said, it gets points for being a nice surprise if you don't expect it. It feels like an early foray into trackless rides and their exciting use of motion.
So hop on the joke boat and join us as we sail the sea of hilarity.
One of the first things I ever remember buying from the Scholastic Book Fair was a book of knock-knock jokes. So naturally, that turned into me being Mr. Funny Man of the Future, and because of that, God did I want Jungle Cruise to do better. Despite it being plain, the vehicle being a steam launch gives it a unique style, definitely an upgrade from our other boats, and it's pretty funny that the Jungle Cruise essentially runs on the water version of the Tomorrowland Speedway. While movement isn't necessarily a plus for a slow-moving boat, though this one here is smooth, the design definitely is. Like I mentioned, these are plain, and I would have rather had a splash of paint to match the fun, comedic vibe of the ride. But on the opposite end, that isn't the visual flavor of the Jungle Cruise. There's a tan canopy with old lanterns and some nameplates on the top, and these are one of the hallmarks of the Jungle Cruise in general. Each boat has its own alliterative name based on a different river. My personal favorite is Wamba Wanda, it's the most fun to say. And, on top of that, each boat gets a new name for the Jingle Cruise, the ride's Christmas overlay. And that's just magical. I love holiday overlays. I wish Disney World had more of them so I could talk about them more. But the design isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Mostly, the boats are pretty complicated and uncomfortable. Down the center on one side there's extra benches, while the other has this huge engine, and it just feels like a tripping hazard for the sake of it, because everyone tries to walk over the middle, and then we get yelled at about it, and then that's just mean. The final thing that, yes, counts as part of the vehicle is the one, the only, skipper. To be honest, this is the reason the Jungle Cruise got as high as it did, and became important on the sake of a technicality. Obviously, I wasn't originally going to consider the skipper as part of the vehicle, but they provide the on-ride audio. So if I didn't mention them, then I couldn't consider the on-ride audio for anything else, so congrats, Jungle Cruise, your technicality gets you higher. While they are following the script, having a live skipper makes it so each boat is very personal. They make it so the boat is an extension of them. Best cast members acting with their microphone, with their steering wheel, with all of it. Does that mean the quality of the ride vehicle depends on the quality of the skipper? Perhaps, but I've never met a skipper who didn't ace it.
There! We gotta get around them somehow!
Here goes!
It's fitting that the best part of the ride that used to be World of Motion is its motion. Anyway, welcome to Test Track. Even though I haven't been since 3.0 opened, I can say that this version of the ride fixed the biggest issue I had with it, which was the old cars. Let's take a look. Yuck! The shape is fine, we aren't talking about that. I'm talking about this ugly wrap the car has. It's giving Kinder Egg toy, or Lego sticker you have to slap on, but you messed it up so now it's crooked, but you can't undo it or you'll rip the sticker. And the inside is this ugly gray color too. There's something so cheap about it, which is bizarre since this doesn't feel like a cheap kind of ride. In 3.0 though, it's got a shiny, sleek black look with this tealish neon Blue. Oh my god, Hatsune Miku! Design aside, the best part, and the reason most people go in the first place, is the motion. This is a slot car attraction, a ride vehicle invented by Walt Disney Imagineering for Test Track. It's only been used for 2 others, which are Journey to the Center of the Earth and Radiator Springs Racers. And because this is a unique ride type, it makes its motion even more exciting. It's a type you can only get a few places in the entire world, assuming the track and motion haven't been changed since 2.0. Test Track has a very abrupt and responsive movement. There's speed ups, slow downs, instant stops and starts, and rapid acceleration. You can feel the smoothness in both the dark and thrill sections, which, for the oldest version of this ride type, is very impressive. If you want any reason to try this vehicle, it's just to know what it's like to be in that Street Pass minigame.
Welcome aboard the Invincible 2, Captain. Glad to have you here.
Mission Space is sickening. Literally. It was one of the first thrill ride simulators, paving the way for all the smugglers' runs of the future. But the problem with being a trailblazer, it gets a lot of things wrong. For reference, I'm going to talk about the orange ride for this because orange actually has full-on motion, whereas green doesn't use the centrifuge ride system to actually spin. Mission Space is one of the most uncomfortable in the parks, and known to cause motion sickness even in people who don't typically experience it. This is because the ride system is a huge, high-tech centrifuge. Basically, if you've been on a Gravitron at most fairs, that's what this is, but much bigger and more intense, and also tilts you as you go. This, along with the screen inside, helps mimic the same G-forces astronauts feel when shooting into space. And I think I can speak for most fans when I say, there's a reason we're not astronauts. We aren't built for this at all. Even me who enjoys spinning rides, I know hopping off this, I'd be throwing up rainbows. And what doesn't help is the simulators themselves. The cars are extremely compact, 4 to a segment closed off with overhead restraints, and man does this feel like overkill. To put it into perspective, the only other ride in Disney World to have over-the-shoulder restraints is Rock and Roller Coaster, the one where you go upside down. And I understand it's for safety purposes and immersion, but these cars are already small enough. Speaking of immersion, though, that's the one highlight Mission Space has, and where my defense comes in. Epcot started as a park based on education, and while some of those aspects are phased out, it's actually stayed true to its theme for the most part, and Mission Space is one of the newest rides to keep that. While I do think this vehicle is flawed, I also think it does exactly what Epcot wants. It innovates and teaches while providing an extremely thrilling experience. Imagineers didn't wake up one day and Google medieval torture devices for the sake of it. No, they wanted to put a space flight simulator in the parks to teach guests about how this is a real thing we as humans have done to advance science. And I think that's amazing. Not to mention the design of the cabins themselves. Sure, they're a little dated, especially when it comes to the simulator boom of modern-day theme parks, but they still were dedicated to the theme, on top of the interactive buttons that flash, an added challenge for the guests to hopefully distract them from the extreme spinning feeling. The on-ride audio and video can be breathtaking at times. So while the hate of Mission Space and its system is understandable, especially because motion sickness can completely ruin a park day, I'll defend it to the moon and back. Or Mars and back. We meet again, Slinky Dog Dash. All my opinions of Slinky Dog boil down to the stunning look and little substance. It's hard to talk about a lot of these steel coasters for the same reason it's hard to talk about flat rides, and that's that their vehicles don't do anything new. And my special interest, unfortunately, does not extend to coaster specs. I'm sorry, I'm not one of those guys. But even if I was, it's not like Slinky Dog's doing anything stellar with its movements. The only thing I can give it is it has the most comfortable launches of any ride I've been on. There isn't an intense or painful pushing feeling, and no headbanging effect, despite the comparatively high speeds it gets up to. It's also comfortable, lots of legroom and a nice accented paint job and individual lap bars. It's basic, sure, but it could be a lot worse. I was expecting all the same orange color through the whole seats. My only thing is I wish the lap bars were the same gray as the Slinky springs, but the black is fine too. As for the rest of the train design, that's what makes it this high on the list. Being in Slinky Dog is such a great idea for a kid's coaster. The train designs work extra well as a backdrop to Toy Story Land, similar to Big Thunder and Frontierland, and the size of these trains especially helps them loom over. This is also easily the best car to directly emulate a character from the movies. While the Dumbo hive mind from before is adorable, there's so much character in Slinky. He's got a bright, happy smile, and as someone who owns Dachshunds, I can confirm they look exactly like that. His floppy ears in the wind are a great touch, as well as his wheeled paws. You can tell someone had a ton of fun designing him, even the Slinky spring handlebars to bring the whole car together, making for one of the most complete examples of a car on the list. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is built on broken promises. By that I'm talking about its supposedly innovative new motion. If you're new to the theme park scene or have no clue what I'm talking about, the mine train was built with the promise of a rocking mechanic, where you'd sit in little mine carts and each car would rock back and forth along with the back and forth of the track. And yes, it is technically still on the ride, which is a very cool addition, but you really have to put effort in to get a strong sway. Just sitting in the car only gives a subtle rock. Like a quartz, perhaps. Oh, I cracked myself up. Crack myself like a geode. But seriously, this feature barely works. And without it there isn't much setting this car apart as unique. But it does glide smooth and comfortable. Compared to the much rougher coasters in Magic Kingdom, that alone is a breath of fresh air. The car glides along the track, and I know some cowards definitely need something easier on their back. While the cars are on the smaller side, it's another with individual seats and lap bars, which I prefer to the whole seat bars anyway. And they look gorgeous. While they don't have a full-on front car, there is a lantern hanging off the front that lights the way at night. The wood grain here is the most detailed in these parks, with a shiny, rustic finish that goes all the way through the car. It's another one that feels more hand-carved than plasticine, and that's in the whole track, down to the fake wheels that cover up its base, and the extra iron detailing that holds it together pulls even the black handlebars into the full design. While part of me does wish we had a front train to pull us along, especially since it's called the mine train, it's more excusable because the front car has something. And runaway mine carts still work for the story here. I'm just bitter its mechanic isn't as strong as everyone said it would be.
Well, that's how it feels to drive a Ford F-250.
Kilimanjaro Safaris is a Ford. I'm not joking. I don't know why, but this was the funniest revelation of my research for this video. You may have some rides manufactured by elevator companies and some by military flight simulators, but does that really beat being a Ford F-650? There's a very obvious logical reason this ride can't operate on a track, and that's that it is a genuine safari. You're taking a driving path through the Animal Kingdom Reserve, so having a track that runs through would be extremely dangerous for any animals that live there. And that means that the cast members actually have to drive you through. This leads to some completely unique moments stopping and starting or taking alternate paths. The cars themselves look great, with similar design hallmarks to the Wildlife Express train, a dusty, striped paint job with wood planks on the sides to keep the seats together and supplies overhead. Despite this vehicle being made with utility in mind, it's able to let its design be just as iconic. The seats are wide and spacious, with big gaps in space in order to take as many pictures as you'd like. Similarly to Mission Space, this is another ride where education is key, even in the car design. If you look up above your seats, you'll see cards with pictures of all the animals in the reserve. And as a kid, one of my favorite things was trying to cross off all the different animals you could see. It acted not only as a look and find, but also taught me about some animals I didn't know about otherwise. So yay, teaching tool! And the cast members here are extra interactive. On top of being the drivers, they also act similarly to the Jungle Cruise skippers. They don't have nearly as jokey of a script, but they have much more room for improv since animals are unpredictable, and they can pull a ton of facts and trivia for each exhibit and react alongside the guests. If you couldn't tell, I love cast member interaction, and we don't have nearly enough of it. I do not care if it's more expensive to have this. Disney has the money. Please, please, please have more cast members interacting. I'll give you my blood.
What? We're in a river!
Finally, the last water ride on this list, which sucks for any water ride enthusiasts out there, whoever you are. But Kali River Rapids isn't a bad choice to cap off the genre, not at all. Specifically, how well its system lends itself to being so unique. We don't have any other rapids rides in Disney World, meaning no water ride is as thrilling as Kali. Because it's free floating, it needed to use these standard raft vehicles. They're built for this express purpose, and it shows. Their motion is influenced by the way the water flows, and it makes every time you go different. The vehicles are surprisingly comfortable, with open seats and non-restrictive restraints. Sometimes riding it feels very open-ended, like you could fall out at any point, but I think that adds to the thrill. These rafts, like most Animal Kingdom vehicles, are intricately designed and decorated, which you wouldn't expect from a ride that's bombarded with water. It makes me more mad at the other water rides for being decorated so little. It's kind of just sad, but it makes Kali shine in comparison. It has a distinct green, orange, and tan color scheme, strapped with supplies. The ropes on the side are organized in little triangles, and like the Jungle Cruise before it, each car is named. Unfortunately, I can't find a full list of these names, but my favorites are Irrawaddy Daddy and So Sorry. The most iconic thing about Kali has to be the splash zone. Of all the water rides, none soak you as bad as this one, which is appreciated since Animal Kingdom doesn't have any alternatives. The vehicles help you get soaked, with the water splashing through the gaps in the seats to attack everyone in the vehicle. This leads to it easily having the most unique vehicle of its boat counterparts. So, in its own way, it gets a gold medal. Just don't tell Kali it didn't crack the top 15.
Hi, Mr. President! We need your help! Some masked villain named the Glitch is
Sonic,
taking over the
my
system.
long-lost lover. It's fine.
What? Hey, I told you not to bring that up anymore. I'm putting that behind me, Mr. President.
And we're back in refurb land. Rock and Roller Coaster has just closed to become the new Muppet Coaster. And yes, while it is closed, it's mostly a visual overhaul and retheme. As far as we know, the cars themselves will get a new psychedelic coat of paint to closer mimic the Electric Mayhem's iconic bus. But the track or cars mechanically won't be changed. All of that to say, yes, we're still ranking this version. Overall, it feels different from all the other steel coasters on the list, because it's the only inverted one. The motion is smooth, other than the launch, which is harsh, but come on, it's not like this ride would be able to work without such a harsh launch. Sure, it's intense, but still sleek. The car designs themselves are iconic. You can see them in the exterior queue alone. When you see promotional material that primarily features the vehicles, that's how you know they're the star of the attraction. These super stretch limos are sleek and effortlessly cool. You'd think their very shape would make for a painful experience, but they look and feel just as nice. The front and back cars are very well sculpted, the lights especially looking older but well maintained. The grills are shiny, and the seat numbers have this sexy typography we all love. One of my biggest complaints about it, though, is the color scheme. I just don't like gray cars. I never have, and I always wanted a slightly cooler color for the Rock and Roller Coaster. Even a silver car would have been better than this bluish gray we got. The best detail on this, though, is the license plate. If I ever got a vanity plate, it would have to be bye-bye. This is incredible. The last thing it excels in is its on-ride audio, one of the strongest on the list, probably because it cranks itself up to 11 and blasts your eardrums to insane degrees. But that's the point. Of all the things I hope they don't change, the audio quality is something I'm begging for. Even if Aerosmith isn't your jam, you have to admit any rock music playing that loud gets you hype. If you can hear after getting off, that is.
Keep going. You're good. You're good. You're good. And stop. Don't worry, Captain. We'll buff out those scratches.
This is the Peter Pan's Flight Redemption arc, baby. From me complaining about its queue to me praising its innovative vehicle, Peter Pan's Flight is currently the only suspended dark ride in the Disney World bubble. That being said, I've always loved the idea of a suspended dark ride, especially since Horizons closed before I was even alive, so my exposure to them has been limited at Peter Pan and E.T. You board a flying pirate ship dusted with pixie dust as you soar over London and then Neverland. Peter Pan's Flight wouldn't work nearly as well if it wasn't suspended because of all the forced perspective and the overhead view. The only thing I'll dock points for is how clunky these vehicles are. It isn't nearly as bad as the ones ranked lower, but sometimes it feels like I'm dragging across the ocean floor. Or the sky? You think there's bumpy clouds? Who knows? But it's also not as painful because of the suspension. Usually it's just the turns feeling very jerky. The highlight of these pirate ships, though, the design. Of all those classic Disney dark rides, this is the most beautiful vehicle on offer. They've been well kept through refurbishments, but still feel like classic Disney as opposed to a complete overhaul. Beyond having different color variants, which we know I love, there's so much detail in each boat. In the gold accents on the front and back, the shaping of the sails, I don't think there's a more intricately detailed vehicle, save for maybe the carousel horses. They feel so magical, even down to this basic lap bar lowering. It exudes Disney magic.
I don't really care if he's Freddy. I'm just trying to get my hands on his sweet, succulent AA batteries.
Oh, would you look at that? It's another speculative entry. Space Ranger Spin has been closed since 2025 for refurbishments. But unlike some of the other refurbs, we actually have a look at the new cars for Buzz. From what I know, this is mostly a visual and gameplay overhaul, not a track overhaul. So I'll have to talk about movement as it was before the refurbs. So Buzz Lightyear is technically an Omni-mover, but what sets it apart is it lets you control the direction you Omni-move in. With this little joystick. Use it to get perfect aim, or in the case of my father, use it to sabotage whoever you're playing against by whipping the car around. This was an especially useful feature since before the guns were fixed on an axis, but this version will be closer to Disneyland's Astro Blasters, where guns are connected to a wire. Now you can get double the extra motion, which I think will make for way more intense gameplay. Okay, now from speculation into the new and improved, the visuals. Recently, the new overhauls were posted and, oh my god, I love these. My opinion on Buzz Lightyear is that as much as I adore it with all my heart, I do think it has a Charles Entertainment Cheese level of cheapness to its stickered up walls. It looks like a McDonald's toy in a way I don't totally hate, but it was long overdue for a visual upgrade regardless, and we sure did get it. The vehicles are still, in their bones, the same. A self-guided rotating Omni-mover with points and guns, but every original part of the vehicle is there, except instead of the alien green we saw before, it now looks closer to an actual Buzz Lightyear toy with the grays and purples. A lot of these things, including the new guns, were taken from Disneyland's version, but the visual overhaul is completely new. It's an impressive way of boiling down the Buzz essence into a vehicle, even with the numbers and the batteries working together in an extra cohesive way. Honestly, with some time and the actual overhaul debuting, it may go higher in the future.
I gotta sing the Doom song now! Doom, 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 doom,
Put your pitchforks down, you madmen. I have a reason it isn't in the top 10. The Haunted Mansion is an extremely important ride in Disney history because it was what cemented the Omni-mover, which would go on to be one of the most common vehicles for dark rides across the parks. Technically, it wasn't the first to use it. That honor would go to Adventures Through Inner Space in Tomorrowland, but that would be far from its last appearance. Originally, the Haunted Mansion was supposed to be a walkthrough attraction, but the Imagineers ran into so many problems with this version. On top of throughput, the other biggest issue was trying to isolate the guest's vision to whatever they were meant to see. They had no idea how to hide the illusions and lighting effects, and didn't want guests to easily peek behind the curtain. So, when Adventures Through Inner Space was made, Imagineers politely swiped the vehicles, painted them black, and threw them here. And thus, the Atommobile was quickly transformed into the Doom Buggy. This is one of the most iconic vehicles now, despite its plain appearance, and has come into its own as a park's icon. And all that history to say, the Doom Buggy did everything right. In my opinion, I think it's the most effective dark ride vehicle in terms of creating a personal experience, which I think was necessary for a haunted attraction. Obviously, most people aren't scared riding it, but it does make you a little more on edge to be shut in and isolated from the world around you. Also aiding in this is the use of on-ride audio, probably the best example of it too. I'll commend Paul Frees every time I talk about the Haunted Mansion because those on-ride speakers being right next to your ear is still the creepiest thing about it. There's a strange, creaky quality to this audio being so old and so loud that it perfectly fits the vibe of a ghost host hovering over your shoulder. As much as historically and personally I think these cars are perfection, there's also a lot done more recently to make rides more innovative. It is the highest ranked Omni-mover for good reason, but visually it isn't anything groundbreaking, just a solid black car. And the movement doesn't do anything super different from other Omni-movers. Still, Haunted Mansion is perfect. Everything about it is perfect. If I could, I would rank it number 1 on every list. Please, I promise you, I'm showing restraint.
Rats, we're rats. We're the rats. We pray at night, we stalk at night. We're the rats.
I'm the giant rat that makes all of the rules.
Let's see what kind of trouble we can get ourselves into.
It's the Ratmobile! I'm not joking, this is the official name of the vehicle, and we need to appreciate it. And before I give any critique, because how is that even possible, we need to address how perfect this is. Looking at it gives me the same feeling I'd assume being in the presence of a god does. Completely incomprehensible beauty and grace that rips your mind to shreds the longer you look at it. We have all these billionaires in the world, but it's never anyone who deserves it. Why isn't whoever designed this a billionaire? And no, I don't mean Disney engineering, I mean the specific person who first pitched the idea of, hey, let's drive in rats. They look adorable. Those faces are filled with absolute perfection. Beady little eyes and their itty-bitty smile. This thing is true magic. Don't you think so? So, the Ratmobile. The vehicle for Remy's Ratatouille adventure is Trackless, originally made for Paris before being ported over to Epcot. As most modern trackless rides are, the movement is pretty solid and smooth, and there's a subtle movement and jerkiness to the rats that some people attribute motion sickness to, but not me. Funny enough, since most of my best points about the Ratmobile are how it looks visually, my biggest issue with it is also a visual complaint. For those who don't know, trackless rides work by having a base filled with its complicated sensors. They use the area around them to guide the car ahead, which is why you see so much blank open space, so they have room to contact those sensors. While other rides have found ways to design around the space, Ratatouille did not. It doesn't take much to look down and see the huge oval under the car. Because there's some space between the rat and the base, it only serves to make it more obvious. But if you don't look down, which you're not missing much down there anyway, you'll actually stay immersed in the tail. See what I did there? 'Cause they're rats. 2 words. That queue. Hey, we already did that video, didn't we? Yeah, sure, other queues have spots where you can test the vehicle before going on, but none of them show the scale the same way that Star Tours does. For reference, obviously they weren't going to let you try sitting in basic theater seats, but instead they show you the Star Speeder itself beforehand. This thing is huge. Even though it's a theater stuck to hydraulics, it sets the tone for an exciting trip across the galaxy. I've mentioned before I'm not a huge fan of Star Wars, but the way Star Wars flavors things is like the most perfect form of camouflage ever. Flight simulator, boom, spaceship. The Star Speeders have this sharp trapezoid-like shape to them. It's super aerodynamic, and you can even see R2-D2 poking his little head out. The inside is great too, but also where a lot of my visual complaints come from. It does just look like a theater, cutting a little bit of that illusion off. The seats are an intense people mover blue that barely complements the orange on the outside. Its motion, though, is a highlight. It's a bigger, less refined version of a flight simulator like Smuggler's Run, but this has staying power. The movements are fairly intense for its size, making for big jumps and leaps through space. Another one where a lot of people report motion sickness, and this one I do understand a little bit. The front of the Star Speeder is extra detailed in a way that only Star Wars knows how to do. The screen is well implemented as the main window, the other transmissions act like they're not a mechanic, but instead actual hijackings. Everything feels diegetic. And also, yes, it counts, C-3PO looks incredible. I know we all miss Rex, but also, it's C-3PO! Second best Star Wars character ever, C-3PO? Absolute sex icon, C-3PO? Sorry. I just love the way that he moves. Yes, it's robotic and stilted, but also at the same time, that's just how he moves in the movies. That means the animatronic formula just fit him extra well. As if Star Tours couldn't have any more unique features, it has a camera inside that picks a random guest to be called out as a spy, and this adds extra personalization cherry on top of everything else. And now, we're on to the top 10. We've worked our way through a lot of different vehicle types in our adventure, and sort of unfortunately, our top section is dominated by newer models as opposed to older ones. I didn't want to be super biased, but come on, a big thing with vehicles is that they're the mechanics of the ride, and newer attractions innovate more in that regard, and that's okay. But yeah, if you people watching suddenly think I'm a new-gen Disney fan, I want you to remember exactly what we're ranking here. You wouldn't think a simple elevator would make it this high on the list, but alas, there's a lot going into what makes the Tower of Terror so interesting. Technically, it's the second trackless ride in the Disney World bubble, only coming after Ellen's Energy Adventure, which you might be confused given this is a drop tower, but yeah, that one moving dark segment is actually trackless, specifically an AGV. I've always been fascinated by this concept because you'd think mixing mechanics like this, especially something as new as trackless tech, would come much later in the ride type's lifespan. But here we are with our oldest ride in the top 10. But while its movement is extremely slow in the dark segment, or as simple as a drop tower up and down in its main section, it isn't the movement itself that makes it unique. The vehicle itself is really the shining star of it because of how little any of it makes sense. Staying in line with the theme of the Twilight Zone, everything that happens on the ride seems to defy explanation. Most people boarding in that tiny elevator shaft probably think the entire ride takes place right there, so when the dark section happens and you slowly move on a Z-axis, everyone's a little bit confused. Even the drops itself are more intense than you'd expect, since you're falling faster than freefall speed. That shock is equally helped by the look of the vehicles. Similarly to Star Tours, they look more like moving theaters than traditional seats, a huge shaft you climb into. There's a grimy, rusty paint job done over the whole thing. It looks more hazardous to your health than a Disney attraction has any right to. Wow, it's like the Astro Orbiter elevator all over again. The whole shaft has this metal cage around it, giving you that great look of, well, you're already here and there's no turning back now. The biggest thing that scares most ride-goers, though, is the restraints. All you get is a little seatbelt. For some, that's a testament to how safe the ride actually is, and for others, it's more of a what the fuck moment before you're convinced you'll be flung out the second you drop. It's scary, it looks great, and it's able to give you that shock to the system only a scary old TV program can. Rise of the Resistance is the Oscar bait of Disney World. Not as cheap, but definitely made to excel in every category. So yeah, of course I wasn't going to give it perfect marks. Boo, perfectionism. As you can tell by their placement, I adore trackless rides. I think they add a level of uncertainty to your experience that most other rides can't, because you can see the track. And while it isn't doing flips and shit, it's still pretty wild to witness firsthand. Rise has some of the most responsive trackless motion, at least that can be found in the Disney World bubble. The most unique thing about its motion is technically a track thing, but not really, because this is more like an add-on to the traditional vehicle. But it's the inclusion of a drop track. Well, not technically part of the vehicle itself. There's a point where your vehicle goes into a shuttle and drops. Think of it as a mini Tower of Terror. And if I counted it in that ride, I have to count it here. It's a different version of that unexpected action, expecting a dark ride and getting a drop tower. The pure responsiveness and speed of the fleet transports are what make them so thrilling, gliding through scenes effortlessly through different spaces and terrains. The last thing I want to touch on is the visual design. While I honestly don't care for star architecture, I'm more of a Trekkie myself, I think the Imperial designs versus the Rebel ones are played up well, extremely strong juxtaposition, so I was worried knowing most of the ride segment would have that very stoic Imperial design. I do wish there was a bit more variation when it came to the paint job, since most of it is the same dark gray, but I think it looks better in the actual attraction lighting. The vehicles look utilitarian, as they should, and are fairly comfortable for their movement. But this isn't about the vehicle, this is about the man, the myth, the legend, the droid. At least in all my days of going to theme parks, I've never seen a proper animatronic actually built into a vehicle. Unless we're talking C-3PO, but that barely counts. And yeah, the droid's movement is pretty simple, but come on, it's a real-life droid! Between these and the BB-8 and the Q, I have to believe they're forging real droids out back as we speak. We've talked about quite a few trackless rides, almost one right after the other, but you're probably wondering, why did I consider Rise of the Resistance worse than Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway? Besides my obvious mouse bias, there's something that makes the movement here better than the speed and drop tracks Star Wars has on offer. Visually, the cars are incredibly well painted, clean and shiny with red and yellow and magenta. It's lush, very old Hollywood. The details and typography look great. On the sides are the car numbers, while the front and back have the symbol for the Run-Amok Railroad. If you couldn't tell, I love typography. I was forced to learn way too much about it in high school. There's a subtle detailing in the seats that makes them look super squishy and cartoony. The only thing I would complain a bit about is the lap bar, only because it's an ugly green, but it isn't painful or anything. Despite having similar movement to its predecessors, Mickey and Minnie actually takes into account where the rest of the vehicles are in relation to it. Rise provides an individual feeling experience, and that certainly has a place, but the way the train cars work in sync with one another here, that's magical. You could argue this has more to do with the track than the vehicles, but you don't see the track, you only see the vehicle, so it counts. When the ride starts, you have an extra engine that you follow, helmed by Goofy himself, even though we just saw him commit vehicular manslaughter. But when the little doors open and he directly talks to you, it's magical. But this opening gives the illusion that all the cars are connected by Goofy's engine before Mickey and Minnie also commit vehicular manslaughter. Holy shit, can no cartoon character drive? But while in Rise of the Resistance, the emphasis is on solo travel through the ship, in Mickey and Minnie, you're always moving in relation to another car. It's like a tango, literally at some points. And while there are some moments of individuality, see the waterfall scene, it's more interesting when the cars work together. There's also some nice subtle scene effects in the vibration of the cars. While it isn't as exact, small effects are baked into the vehicle itself. The slamming of the crusher, or the jackhammer, or even the zap at the end. And while it isn't as thrilling, I honestly think this mock train is the best. Flight of Passage was gonna do well and we all knew it. It's awesome in every department. So awesome that it actually makes its own score worse. Let me explain. I mentioned something similar in my queue video where a boring queue was bad to me because while it didn't take long to get through, there wasn't much actually holding my attention. A similar concept holds true for Flight of Passage, but instead of it being boring, it's because it does a good job at being a simulator. Because its motion is so immersive, you do kind of forget about the visual features of it. In fact, I had to check what the link chairs looked like because I honestly couldn't remember. They're actually very detailed with that grungy lab color design and a lot to see in both practicality and style. But don't you see my point? It's so good at its job that you don't realize you're on a ride. Anyone who's ridden Flight of Passage can tell you how immersive its flight simulation is. All the dips, turns, and dives are extremely impressive. The personalization of being on your own Banshee, even when reasonably you know you entered with like a dozen other people. Mechanically, the ride is broken down into simple parts. 3 rows of seats, all programmed to move in perfect sync with the video playing. The reason such a huge machine makes sense is because you don't think about it. And, well, that does mean I ruin the magic. Sorry. It's something you really have to try and ruin for yourself while on the ride. If you want to, be my guest, but it's really hard to break that illusion. Overall, my point still stands. The motorcycle-style seats are comfortable and unique with incredibly responsive movement for the size and scope of a simple simulator. Oh, and it breathes. Yeah, what other ride breathes, huh?
I love stealing. I love taking things.
Set dressing is one of my favorite things ever. In movies, in a park, making a great location is something I adore. I took 1 class on it, so I'm basically a genius in it. And while sci-fi and fantasy aren't my go-tos, I respect those genres so much for how in-depth their worlds go. And Star Wars is most famous, or infamous, for that. Imagery from the world of Star Wars is easily evoked in the minds of fans and haters alike, but specifically this extremely detailed world building made Galaxy's Edge pretty easy to make a reality because they had the bones already prepared. What I'm trying to say is they made the Millennium Falcon real. Yeah, when it comes to accurately depicting an iconic location, I know for a fact Star Wars fans were foaming at the mouth for the chance to actually sit in the Millennium Falcon itself. The detailing here is insane, not only for the control scheme and interactive segments, but also the lights and diodes and details and everything overhead. You're encased in pure spacey goodness. It would have been so easy to only have the necessary controls and not waste time on the little things, but they did, and this overachieving is the main reason it sells so well. So what about the rest of it? Its motion is kind of a mixed bag. I think the actual up and down movements are accurate, and there's a genuine feeling that your directional input matters to how your flight feels. Now the actual hit detection, yeah, no, I don't care for it. Granted, it has been a while since I've ridden Millennium Falcon, but any impact on the ship feels the same, whether it's an attack or ramming into something. I get that this is a complex ride system, so I'm not going to knock it too hard, but it is worth mentioning. The last thing worth any note that I've been beating around the bush about is the gameplay. Unlike other simulators, your choices matter, so each row of seats has a different job. The back row is the engineers, who have to fix parts of the ship as they break. The middle is the gunners, who have a set amount of ammo to fight off the pursuers, and the pilots in the front, who control the vertical and horizontal movement respectively. So the problem with that is that Disney is a family park, and families go in there and they want little Timmy to be the pilot. But little Timmy can't even drive the Tomorrowland Speedway, so he's crashing and burning and making it a miserable ride for everyone else. But, that being said, if you have a competent crew, this is one of the coolest mechanics on any ride in the history of the Disney parks. For the complaining I do about Toy Story Land, Mania always seems to narrowly avoid it, like a certain thief I know and love. This is the game tram, easily the best interactive ride vehicle. Most shooting game vehicles you don't typically pay attention to because all you care about is the gun. So when even the gun gets your attention, oh yeah, it's time to rock and roll. These guns have this squishy look to them that's like Toy Story with a sprinkling of Toontown squirt weapon choices. Not only do they have shockingly good range of motion for a fixed gun, but also have a completely unique shooting mechanic. Most boring shooter rides make you hit the gun's trigger. Come on, who does that? Unrealistic. No, I only shoot like Usopp himself in this pull string motion. It's slingshot-esque in a way, and you have to master the flicking to get a good score. But, as you saw in the intro, I have a way to show you how good the controls are, and that's by comparing it to Toy Story Mania on the Nintendo Wii. I don't know if you guys even knew this existed, but yeah, so this was a port of the attraction, but for iOS. and also obviously the Wii, but look at the range of motion on the physical guns versus the actual literal video game. But past the gun design, visually, these look so good. It's giving Coney Island game stand, which was certainly the point. These gold embossed Toy Story logos on the front, the sky blue with the white designs to resemble the clouds, the lush red seats. My only critique is that the car is very cramped. We're teetering on Tomorrowland Speedway territory over here. Lastly, I want to talk about speed. Despite being a wimp when it comes to drops, I actually love fast rides, and I don't know if anyone else has noticed how speedy the game trams move at their peak. They're at a nice brisk pace that makes me wish they had a more complex track, but the speed and grace of the track mixed with the dynamic swivel of the cars themselves makes for a surprisingly fun ride part of the attraction, even though its focus is more on the guns. So yeah, this Wii game has more than earned its spot at number 5. You can pry Dinosaur from my cold, dead hands. I don't care that it's closed, mostly because this is the designated Octane Ramble section, or doors. The reason I still want to talk about Dinosaur, beyond me loving it dearly, is that this vehicle and track are going to remain largely unchanged when Indiana Jones makes its way over here, since they're the same ride in a different skin. And that means it's my time to talk about my favorite vehicle type. The Enhanced Motion Vehicle, or EMV. If you recall, I mentioned the EMV back in the Winnie the Pooh section since technically speaking it does count as one, but this is the true version of that vehicle working in its full capacity. The point of an EMV is to simulate more realistic vehicle movement on a more standard dark ride track, which is why the two most famous EMVs resemble off-road vehicles. Think about these as Star Tours on wheels, with souped-up hydraulics to shoot your car in various directions to simulate different terrain. For example, in the first time travel sequence, as you make your ascent, the vehicle tilts all the way around to give you this fun time warp again. It also makes the movement on a fairly straight track through the woods significantly more jerky. Using a slot car type ride for movement, like Test Track, these cars are also able to have harsh stops and starts when encountering obstacles, slowing down to get better looks at different dinos. Having this extra range of movement makes an already thrilling ride even more intense. Beyond me gushing about how the EMV is the most perfect vehicle type of all time, I also adore the visuals of the Time Rovers, and this is the part we're definitely losing when this leaves. One of the most visually distinct vehicles on this list, Dinosaur has this grungy lab vibe that only Flight of Passage's Q gets close to. The Time Rover is already a pretty big car, 3 rows of 4 guests. There's a harsh black and yellow hazard tape paint on the front and back bumpers, and so many spaceship-type additions. There's wires and buttons and diodes, and have you guys ever heard of greebling? Yes, this is a real word, I did not make it up. According to Wikipedia, George Lucas coined the term in the 1970s to refer to making the ship designs in Star Wars more intricate. And come on, have you ever seen a more greeble Disney World vehicle than this? Even though the bones of this car are the same as any other Jeep, it's like a mutated, radiated dino Jeep. I miss it so much, I love the Time Rover. But I decided to curb my enthusiasm a bit and keep this from the very top because it, doesn't exist anymore. And when it comes back, we won't have this awesome theme, but it being an EMV wins in my books, and I'm glad we'll be getting an updated version of this ride type at all. I think more rides should put you in compromising positions. That didn't come out right. What I mean to say is sitting down is so last year. We deserve more different ways of riding a ride, and my obsession with those fairground hang glider rides has paid off in Tron Light Cycle Run. To get the obvious out of the way, the uniqueness here comes from the actual way you sit in the vehicles, almost laying on your stomach. Obviously, it's supposed to simulate you on a motorcycle, or light cycle, with speed and style to match. You can really tell this is one of those rides where the vehicle was the forefront of the concept. Everything is baked into these cars. For example, the restraint system. It works by you pushing the handlebars forward to lower the restraint onto your back and hold you in place. This is definitely the coolest restraint system of any ride, though sometimes it can jiggle a bit. That doesn't mean it's loose, but similarly to Tower of Terror, sometimes it gives you the illusion of it being a lot more dangerous. I also want to quickly highlight the accessible seats on this ride. I love these. Not only is it always important for theme parks to have accessibility options, but the fact that these ones mesh so well with the style of Tron. They're like light cycle cars, blending the style without changing how the train looks. Top marks, Disney. This was an incredible decision. Beyond that, visually speaking, these are unmatched. I think the only proper time to ride this is late at night so you sell that light cycle aesthetic. The bikes are sleek black with neon blue light trails and are some of the best examples of making something from a fictional world completely real. They move extremely smooth, and compared to most launch coasters, this one doesn't feel painful at launch. Maybe it's because of the position you're in, but it feels gradual enough without slamming yourself into the seats. I really do think changing the way you're oriented does much more for a coaster than most people give it credit for. As someone who couldn't care less about Tron and who's a coward about coasters, I adore this coaster, mostly because of how different it gets.
Koopas!
Get your mixtapes ready, everyone. We gotta talk about some Guardians of the Galaxy. Cosmic Rewind's evacuation shuttles are a completely different type of coaster than I have ever been on. In fairness, that hasn't been a lot. But this one has some of the best motion ever. To start with its weakest points, I would probably say the actual visual design. Not to say I don't like the way that it looks, because I absolutely do, but if you couldn't tell, I'm not a huge fan of vehicles that come out samey in the visual department. But I get it, this wasn't exactly the focus of these vehicles. And they aren't all bad, the wing designs on the side are an especial highlight. Oh, and my car looks like them and I didn't notice until months of driving it. Okay, that's the only thing I can knock this ride for. Now we get into me being insane. This was actually a brand new vehicle type made by Vekoma for Cosmic Rewind, the Omni Coaster. The goal of the Omni Coaster is to mix the forced vision and spinning tech of an Omni-mover with a coaster track, and it's a match made in heaven. This spinning technology doesn't feel forced in or extremely sickening, and there's obviously a worry about dizziness. I know some people have reported that, but at all my rides, I've never felt jostled around or queasy with the movement. It's a completely unique sensation that no other coaster has been able to give off. The seats and restraints are also pretty comfortable, giving you a lot of room to shift and lean into the motion. You're not being harshly dragged back into the seats. It honestly feels like they mix the best parts of tons of different attractions into this perfect little Frankenstein's monster. Oh, and I shouldn't forget the on-ride audio. Cosmic Rewind cycles through 5 different potential songs and play through the vehicle at you. Honestly, I didn't even realize it was on-ride audio. Obviously it was. The room for the coaster is way too big for the audio to be effective without it, but the volume and how encompassing it is doesn't feel like it should be coming from a coaster vehicle, but something that would come from an Omni-mover. But hell if it doesn't work. Cosmic Rewind is my favorite coaster of all time, and almost all of that comes from its vehicles. Oh, and if anyone was curious, my favorite on-ride song is Everybody Wants to Rule the World. But with me glazing this between this one and the queue, how much I love Guardians of the Galaxy, what could possibly have beaten it? So, if you've been playing the process of elimination game, you're probably a little pissed off right now. And I get it, because how could this be above completely groundbreaking technology? How could this beat the more intricately designed vehicles? What about the theming of the theater in general? Wait, Octane, don't you have a fear of heights? Perhaps. But all of that pales in comparison when we're talking about Soarin'. I have always been amazed at the hang gliders of Soarin' more than any other ride vehicle ever. I'm fully aware the technology here isn't even close to the best of its ride category, but my argument? No vehicle is nearly as tangible as these hang gliders. Starting at seeing these things for the first time, they're giant, filling up this loading dock, this launch bay of sorts. And if you look at, literally anything, you know this is a theater. When I say it's immersive, I don't mean in the way Flight of Passage is. Flight of Passage is immersive in the way that it completely makes you forget you're on a ride by isolating your view to the screen ahead. Not Soarin'. Most of Soarin's selling point is the vehicle. It simulates a specific type of flight, the careful gliding around emphasizing the height you're at. And, as I mentioned, I typically am afraid of heights. Or more, I'm afraid of falling. But being on this ride, tangibly being higher up, that's what makes it sell the illusion of actual flight. I also love the design, not necessarily the color scheme, but the shape, the dynamic overhead, the seatbelts, even the armrests. You really want to hear me talk specific? Let me tell you, these are the best handlebars in any vehicle. I don't know exactly why, maybe because I was white-knuckle gripping them for dear life since I thought I was going to fall and die the first time I rode it, but it's one of those things I have such a distinct memory of. Relaxing as the ride continues, leaning into the seats, and eventually feeling strong enough to let go. Maybe it's because Soarin' isn't exactly a thrilling time, but I felt braver doing this than on any coaster. This was the ride that made me stop being so afraid of trying new thrills. By the time Flight of Passage and Smuggler's Run were out, I knew it was all fake, but this hit me at an impressionable age where it was all real. I was taking off. That couldn't have been replicated in a Star Speeder or the Millennium Falcon, which is why Soarin's hang gliders were, and are, the best ride vehicles in Disney World. And so, another era ends. Excuse my voice, my allergies are murdering me at the moment. First of all, thank you so much to anybody still watching. I know these videos are super long, and anybody following my progress knows I originally planned for this to be out in March, and, no way. Unfortunately, this series has been a lot of me learning my limits, and by that I mean how fast I can reasonably make a feature-length video with a full-time job and my sanity still intact. But don't worry, I'm still going strong with ranking videos, and I will still be uploading with a, hopefully, even more streamlined process from now on. As for upcoming content, I put out a poll a while ago on what you wanted to see, and the winning result was ranking every ride-based gift shop. I'm really happy this was chosen. It'll give me a reprieve from ranking the same few things over and over, and also definitely be much shorter than a ride-based video. Maybe at some point I'll do one for the shops at large, but that's way too big of an undertaking for my tiny brain to handle right this second. Finally, I wanted to take a brief moment on how to support the channel, and honestly, just watching, liking, and subscribing is good enough for me. I haven't had the time to set up a Patreon just yet, but when I do, hopefully before the next upload, all that information will come out then, or in a community post, whatever comes first. But overall, thank you everyone still here for all your love and support. And adios high-octane freakazoids. I'll see you next time.